Welcome to America's national forests and all their great diversity.
I love the glacial history of the Tongass National Forest and the landscape that's come out of that.
It is an island archipelago made up of about 1,000 or more islands.
The Shasta Trinity is one of a number of national forests in Northern California that provide outstanding recreation opportunities for the public.
Because of the large lakes that it has, the steep topography, large trees.
The Coconino National Forest comprises almost 2 million acres in north central Arizona. We range from the low grasslands in the southern part of the forest through the Ponderosa Zone and up into the Tundra Zone.
The Superior National Forest in northeastern Minnesota is unique because of all the wild country up here. It's all forested.
White Mountain National Forest is one of the few federal lands in New England.
We have this amazing road system that brings people from all over the world to look at the stunning vistas that we have.
The Mount Hood National Forest is an urban forest. It's within an hour's drive of the city of Portland.
So it's very accessible, very popular, very majestic.
The Mount Baker Snoqualmie probably has more glacial ice than any other national forest outside of Alaska.
And the Cherokee National Forest is actually the most biologically diverse forest ecosystem in the North American continent.
These are just samples of the national forests and national grasslands in this country that make up our national forest system. They cover 193 million acres. They belong to each of us. And because of that, we expect and deserve the opportunity to visit them, to enjoy them. That means access, and access often requires roads. Roads and highways are a part of our national culture and how we access our public lands. These roads are lifelines because of how crucial they are to the life of the forests and to connecting our own lives to these treasured forest ecosystems. These National Forest System lands are publicly owned. About half of these lands have an integrated network of roads under Forest Service jurisdiction called National Forest System roads. This includes almost 80,000 miles that are open to public travel and maintained for passenger cars. More than 180,000 miles that are maintained only for high-clearance vehicles. And over 110,000 miles that are for future and emergency use. All present a continuing management challenge for the Forest Service and its many partners. There are numerous interstate and state highways that cross the National Forest System and are part of the National Highway System. The state, county, town, and local routes that provide vital access to and through the national forests are often designated as forest highways. There are more than 29,000 miles with this special designation. The forest highways are roads that branch off the National Highway System to provide access to the National Forest System. These forest highways are maintained by state or local governments. They may be higher or lower standard roads, but they all provide critical access to the national forests. There are also roads within the national forests that are under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service. The Forest Service maintains these roads for passenger car use. And finally, the Forest Service maintains some roads at a minimal level for future and emergency use. These roads are not available for use by motor vehicles. The challenge is to create a seamless connection between the different types of roads, even though they may fall under different jurisdictions. Not only are these national forests and grasslands unique and varied, but we perceive them with an almost mystical quality. They have become a part of our psyche. The responsibility of stewardship for these public lands belongs to the Forest Service and its many partners. The Forest Service was established by Congress in 1905 to protect the national forests and provide quality water and timber for the benefit of the nation. In 1911, Congress passed the Weeks Act, which authorized the government to purchase lands to be managed as national forests. The initial purpose was to protect waterways and watersheds in the eastern part of the country.
When the Weeks Act passed, more than 80% of New Hampshire was deforested, and now more than 80% of the landscape is forested once again.
The Forest Service's responsibility for these lands has continued to evolve as times have changed. That stewardship is based more on the mission of caring for these forests, habitats, and wetlands than it is about roads. And yet the Forest Service also has a responsibility to the public, which expects the access that allows us all to enjoy the forests. It is a complex balancing act. The roads that go to and through our national forests and grasslands are more than just physical connections between our people and their lands. They are lifelines. They also connect us with our heritage and even with our future.
The routes that people are traveling today are travels through time, because those same locations have been the travel ways for people going all the way back into the prehistoric period.
The Unicoi Turnpike was one area that developed as a main connector between the Cherokee villages in prehistory, and then historically developed into a trade route. When you walk along that route, you are literally walking in the very footsteps of all those who went before you. What came with the 20th century was massive commercial logging, and then the Great Depression. During that period, the Civilian Conservation Corps and Roosevelt's Tree Army quite literally brought this land back to life, including this massive system of roads that they constructed mostly by hand, and many of them are forest roads. They were created specifically by the CCC for the Forest Service.
Many travel routes in the American West began with the trading and social activities of native tribes. Later, they expanded through logging and industrial use, well before the lands became national forests.
When people from Europe first started coming here, either for the homesteading or for the logging or whatever types of inducements, the travel corridors that they used were very well established by the tribes, the local folks. So that was what people used and built upon.
Before the advent of the automobile, ranchers and homesteaders followed these early trails with their horse and mule teams, bringing resources out of the forest. Then came the railroad.
After World War II, the use of trucks rather than the rail became a more efficient way of moving logs and timbers. The tracks were pulled up, and the routes of those railroads became the heart of the transportation system for the forest.
Mining was another force in the creation and placement of roads to and within forests.
Anytime you had a mining activity, that of course became a big surge of people, and that helped build roads in places that you probably wouldn't have ever had roads. So over time, those early routes eventually became looked at for routes into the forest.
The historical diversity and evolution of forest roads continues today. Just as some trails have become major roads, some roads have returned to being trails.
The kinds of roads you'll experience on the Mount Hood National Forest range from 4-lane state highways to 2-lane county roads, asphalt blacktop roads. They're single lane with pullouts down to gravel roads, down to actually the historic primitive Barlow Road, which is the overland route of the Oregon Trail.
From wagon routes to interstate highways, the variety of surfaces and road types is great. This offers a diversity of experiences, many of which are unique to individual regions. Many roads within a forest are not open to motorized vehicles. These roads are maintained at a minimal level to allow emergency access, environmental protection, and other management activities.
Roads are very important for initial attack time on fires, and it really saves an awful lot of burned acreage if you can get to it quickly with the proper equipment. And roads are extremely necessary for timber management as well as all the other activities that go on in the national forest, range management, and then for maintaining the forest health.
While not open to vehicles, these roads are often enjoyed by hikers, equestrians, and bikers. Cooperation is crucial when it comes to managing varied and complex forest road systems. A key player in these partnerships is often the Federal Highway Administration.
The working relationship between the Forest Service and the Federal Highway Administration goes way back to 1905 in the construction of forest roads and forest highways, which occurred around about 1916. Both the Forest Service and the Federal Highway Administration were originally under the Department of Agriculture.
The Federal Highway Administration's Federal Lands Highway Office cooperates with all federal land management agencies that own and operate public roads, including the Forest Service. The Federal Lands Highway Program provides funding from the Highway Trust Fund for the planning, design, and construction of transportation improvements on roads and bridges that provide access to federal and tribal lands. Federal Lands Highway is often asked to be the lead agency for design and construction in multi-agency projects involving federal lands. The Forest Highway Program requires a unique relationship between Federal Lands Highway, the Forest Service, and state departments of transportation to plan, design, and construct forest highways in 41 states and Puerto Rico.
As time has gone by, working through the tri-agencies being the Federal Highway Administration, the Forest Service, and the Alaska Department of Transportation in a partnership, have been able to work very closely with the communities, with the Prince of Wales Advisory Council, to prioritize which roads and which communities need to be linked up with better roads.
The Rocky Gorge Highway Reconstruction Project on the Kankomongoose Highway was unique in that we're actually moving a portion of the Kankomongoose Highway. We worked very closely with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration for funding, and we were able to work through the environmental issues involved to move this section of the highway, and it's going to make it a great spot for folks to come and visit.
The National Forest Scenic Byways program recognizes highways that are outstanding examples of our nation's beauty, history, culture, and recreational experience. There are over 9,000 miles of these byways designated by the Chief of the Forest Service. They link gateway communities to the natural attractions of the national forests and grasslands. These byways help to promote rural economic development. Many of these byways have also become recognized by the Secretary of Transportation as National Scenic Byways or All-American Roads. Some early byway efforts on national forests have also helped lead to National Scenic Area designations.
The National Scenic Area Act is a unique act in itself, as it designated about 80 miles of the Columbia River on both sides of the river, Oregon and Washington, and created this unique land management unit. And it has two purposes. One is to protect and enhance the scenic, cultural, and natural resources. And then the second purpose is to promote economic growth.
The diversity of forest roads offers a multitude of driving and recreational experiences. But that diversity also poses challenges for the maintenance of those roads.
A lot of people think that roads last forever. Any road that's used or not used will start to show effects. So we actually have a road crew on this forest that maintains those roads.
Care and maintenance of forest roads yields much more than driving pleasure. The roads are often the economic lifeline of many communities in a variety of ways. In the past, economic activity was based on resource extraction, such as timber harvest, mining, and rangeland use. These industries created jobs and brought people and money into local communities, creating places that otherwise would not have existed. Roads made this possible, and new roads were created to increase access.
We are definitely the largest private employer that provides a living wage and benefits and health insurance and all that type of stuff. I think we make a big economic impact on an area that has a very low population. There's not that many people here, there's not that many permanent jobs.
With the expansion of road networks, other industries began to contribute to local economies. Where logging was once the predominant activity, recreation and tourism are now taking the lead. The National Forest System provides a unique niche that is closely linked to roads. For example, access for open camping, hunting, and fishing. The more than 180,000 miles of National Forest System roads that are maintained for only high-clearance vehicles represent one of the nation's greatest resources for adventure travel, mountain biking, and access to motorized backcountry recreation on designated routes. Many tourism businesses use these for guided touring on our federal lands. Proceeds from these activities help the National Forest contribute to the U.S. gross domestic product. Nearly 60% of total contribution comes from these recreational uses.
I operate this little business here, Sled Dog Adventures, where we take people for rides or we take them out and they mush their own team and out into the wilderness, which is mostly the Superior National Forest around here. There's expansive logging roads all over this area, this Arrowhead region, and we can use them. So I mean, that's how the roads are important to me.
The highway is what we call our main street. There are a lot of artisans out here, a lot of craftspeople, some nice accommodations. The highway is the main connector between all the communities out here, and it's the main artery that brings tourists out. It's the only way they have to get out here.
The Cherahalla Skyway was built to surmount a mountain range, to connect two states, and to bring in tourists.
We envision economic development for both sides of the mountain, the two communities such as Robbinsville, North Carolina, and Tellico Plain. And we envisioned a connection between the two communities.
We're at the beginning of a wonderful explosion for the economy here, a tourist explosion, and we're grateful for that. It's going to improve the lifestyle of our neighbors. There'll be more employment. It's been said that the tourism dollar turns over 13 times before it leaves the county.
A lot of people come out here to see these beautiful red rocks, these cliff dwellings, rock art, and to come out to beautiful Arizona to the red rocks and the blue sky and the sunshine.
These drove very slowly.
Our outfitter guide community helps us in many ways through interpretation to the visiting public. They help us maintain trails, maintain roads. They provide approximately $20 million a year in gross income to the Sedona area.
Well, tourism in New Hampshire is our #1 industry. It contributes $3.5 billion in gross revenues every year. It's the #2 tax producer for state government, and this is a state that has no sales or income tax, so it depends really on the tourist business. There are about 8 million people that visit the White Mountains during the course of the year.
We have people coming for backcountry experiences. We have people coming to drive the highways for front country experiences. We have beautiful fall foliage and rushing streams. There's a little bit of everything for everybody.
I think the glorious and unexpected thing about this hotel is to come around the corner and be surrounded by all this glorious national forest. It is absolutely vital that we have the interstate system to get people very close to us, and then the secondary roads with the scenic byways through here so that they can have easy access without any problem traveling to see what is glorious.
Forest roads are not only important to the economy by improving access, they are equally vital, even taken for granted, as conduits that allow local residents and business people to go about their daily business.
The Kancamagus Highway is a heavily used scenic byway, but it's also unique because it handles a lot of commuter traffic as well.
Within southeast Alaska's Tongass National Forest are many communities that would be completely isolated if not for the lifeline of the forest roads. There is very little private or state land for roads to be built on this island archipelago. The Tongass is the landscape that binds these small communities together.
There aren't any roads that connect the islands together, but each island has various amounts of road on it. So we rely upon a system of ferry boats linked to the roads, so you end up with an intermodal transportation system.
The roads are what people move product and goods to and from, and not only recreate but rely on for going to the doctor visits and dentists and everything. So without the roads that we now have connecting those communities, they would still be isolated and rely totally on water or air for getting in and out of where they're at.
The importance of forest roads to so many people, businesses, communities is great. Increasingly, businesses and government agencies are finding ways to cooperate in sharing the use, restoration, and upkeep of these roads.
Roads on the White Mountain National Forest are maintained by several jurisdictions. We of course have the state, which is responsible for roads like the Kancamagus Highway. We also have Forest Service roads, of which the forest still has a road maintenance crew. And then we also have town roads that the towns and local communities take care of.
One thing that's unique about Minnesota is that on individual projects, federal highway funds are used for 80% of the funding, and then the county or the state then pick up the local match. So there's certainly our partners, the county and the state, have a vested interest.
Local, regional, and federal cooperative planning is critical for safety reasons as well. For example, fire management.
Fire doesn't recognize who owns the land. It'll burn across private land as well as public lands. And so therefore, to have better fire access, roads are a necessary part of that agreement between local parties and the federal lands.
The partnerships that enhance these roads and their usage are not limited to government agencies. Commercial users are often responsible for caretaking through direct maintenance or financial contributions.
Puget Sound Energy has 2 dams on that river system on National Forest for hydroelectric power. So Puget works with us in terms of road access. They work with us on doing enhancements associated with that project.
The ski area and the Forest Service have had a relationship here for a number of years, and we work very closely with each other year in and year out. There's a lot of recreation that happens off this road. So it is a vital artery here to the ski area, and we need to make sure that we maintain it and we keep it open for everybody to utilize.
Pink Jeep Tours provides guided tours on Forest Service lands. We foster that relationship by stewardship, road work, and helping the forest as much as we can to make sure that not only that we can continue to provide our tours, but also to make sure the landscape is not changed from our use.
Roads are conduits for people across the land. Building and maintaining roads, while ensuring that they lie lightly on the land, is a complicated balancing act between transportation effectiveness, human safety, and environmental care. This balancing act is commonly referred to as context sensitivity.
The Forest Service is uniquely situated in terms of having engineers, fishery biologists, wildlife biologists, and hydrologists working together to be able to design road features that will actually meet the needs of maintaining the road system infrastructure and also minimizing the impacts to the aquatic systems. So oftentimes one of the first things we'll do is evaluate what the problem is and what resource that we're trying to protect, and then design ways to make that happen.
National forests have always been significant watersheds. Most of America's fresh water supply flows from national forest lands.
These are huge sponges for the North American continent, absorbing the water and providing a steady water source for the American population.
One of the biggest jobs of the Forest Service is to help provide clean water so water can come out of the mountains and come down and flow out to the sea.
The Bull Run watershed, that's a key watershed for the city of Portland. It's probably one of the last unfiltered water sources that you'll find for a major city. And we've worked with the city of Portland, taking care of and preserving the resource that's there.
The health of these watersheds is critical, not only to the health of forests, but to the health of those living downstream. Fish and other aquatic life need to move within streams. Because roads and culverts can impede that passage, accommodations are a key part of the process.
Some of that work involves taking roads out, closing roads, and putting in fish passage structures, which could be bridges or open bottom culverts, that type of thing. So we're working on, in the next 10 years, to try to get most of our road system where they're fish friendly.
An ecosystem rather than a specific environment or habitat tends to imply the interconnectedness of a variety of physical and biological features that are found in nature. Fisheries, wildlife, they rely upon the physical habitat, the soils, the air, the water.
Because of this, roads have significant impact on wildlife populations. Roads bring in human activity and its disruptions. They cut through lines of migration and foraging, creating disconnects in the natural habitats. Modifying existing roads can reduce the impact and restore habitat connectivity.
The Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest is key wildlife habitat. We have some 8 species that are listed on threatened and endangered species list, and it's that habitat that's absolutely critical to the forest. And closing roads and minimizing the amount of people accessing to some areas is important to that wildlife.
Along with protecting the environment, the Forest Service and its partners manage roads so they protect the people who use them. The goal of these partnerships is to make a safely linked and uniform system, not a disjointed collection of roads that just happen to cross.
The whole idea is to try to create a seamless transportation network that the traveling public doesn't realize they're going from a state road to a forest road to a town road and back to a forest road, and it makes it quite unique.
Our forests are a national treasure that we all share and own together. Accessing them is a part of our heritage, our culture, our economy. Maintaining that access involves constantly changing demands and challenges. For the USDA Forest Service and its partners, it is a stewardship to be taken seriously.
This is a people's forest, and we're finding that more and more people want to be involved in the management of their forest, and so I try and help them do that.
The Forest Service maintains a vast road system, and it's a real challenge under the best of conditions to keep the road system good for health and safety. The other thing to keep in mind is that the roads are located in some of the tougher terrains you'll ever find.
One of the biggest challenges we have is how to maintain the roads we have so that we can get the public up to the forest that they want to visit.
We're caught in the dilemma of providing access to areas through roads, yet at the same time removing roads to return the areas back to a more forested, quiet kind of environment. So that'll be the management decisions to make in the future, is what to leave and what to take out of service.
There's a need for people to experience the forest in order to learn from it. There's a huge amount that people can learn just by being in the presence of these trees and this wildlife.
Roads change things, but in a lot of respects they're also an embodiment of how humans have used this landscape. So they are going to be the connection between the land and people in the future, and I think people aren't going to care about their forest if they can't have access to it.
People come here for the beautiful outdoor experience that they can get. They come because they want to get away from the rush of their daily life and look for some solitude. They want to come and hear the birds chirp. They want to hear the rivers. They want to look at the trees, just to find a beautiful place to get away from it all.
It is something that many people in the world don't have. They wish for places like this. So our task, as far as I can see, is how do we maintain the balance?